Perfect. I think we are live now. Hello, everybody. Hope you can join us tonight for this chat. Hopefully, you're here. We have this chat streaming through not only Google Plus, but you should be able to see it from Rebecca's Facebook. Hopefully, through mine as well. So, we encourage your questions throughout, and actually, we have a special treat. So, if your question gets answered through our live interview tonight, you win a What If t-shirt. So please make sure to ask your questions. We really look forward to it, and I'm so thrilled, a little excited, a little nervous to have this happening live, so it's very real throughout. But so excited to have this interview with you, Rebecca, especially, you know, so shortly after your exciting release. So thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to get started. So I have a number of questions that I really wanted to ask Rebecca, and as your questions come in, we'll answer those as well. So really starting off, congratulations on your release, first of all. Really exciting, really different concept. To me, it felt, you know, like a very intimate kind of concept, a very wistful concept, the idea that a moment or a decision acted upon differently could change your life. In a very dramatic way sometimes. What inspired the what if concept?
Well, the original concept for the entire book was inspired by a song, and it really comes down to it. What got me thinking about the whole what if part of it is just not knowing the person based on their appearance. And a character, you know, Niall is one of them, where she may look a certain way on the outside, but you don't really know what's going on the inside. And it just leads you through life and the choices you make to become that individual and be yourself. And so, in all those choices you make in life, those moments, and to make those decisions. So it was really, it really was inspired by a song first, and it kind of just took root and went in its own way. And I like having messages in all my stories and all my books, something positive, something uplifting, something inspiring. And this one, you know, it all does come down to choices, and I just want readers to feel empowered at the end of it. I hope so, anyway.
Well, and you mentioned music, so kind of a little bit of a tangent off of that. Music is really, or has been really important to you in some of your writing. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I can't remember if you write with music or if you like total silence, but...
Well, with the breathing series, I like silence. I couldn't. It was too intense to have anything else distracting me. So, but when I was not writing, which I, you know, mentally I'm always kind of there, but I would hear a song and it would trigger a scene, or would help me write a new scene, or would make me relate back to another scene. With What If, it was a completely different experience. I wrote it completely differently, and so I actually was listening to music while I was writing, and I never do that. It was just, I feel like each journey with writing is its own experience, and you just do whatever you can to get it out. So if I have to blast music to get it out, then great, but if I need complete silence, then that works as well. And since this is just such a challenging story for me from concept to execution, I needed to do whatever I could to get it out. And by the time it took me 7 months to write this book. By the time I got to the end, and I was finally on a roll because I kept beating my head against a wall, just getting up to dead end to dead end to dead end, and starting again. I started over 5 times. Right? I seriously would get to probably 20,000 words, and I throw it away. And it was just so frustrating. So finally, when I was on a roll at the end, I was getting towards like the last maybe 20% of the book, and I knew I probably had like a week's worth left. I wore the exact same thing every day. I ate the exact same thing every day. I wore my hair the exact same way. I wore a braid. I had a burger and fries every day and 2 Mountain Dews. I was a mess by the end of that. It's such not a healthy diet at all. But it was just it was so gross. But I got it done. So when I write, whether it's music, whether it's food, whether it's caffeine or chocolate, you know, once I get into that zone, once I get into that groove, I'm really superstitious, I guess. I need to keep it going. So, but yeah.
And I thought even with what you wrote, it seemed like it was such a difficult thing to accomplish because everything, especially once you get to the end, seemed so deliberate, right? So going back and rethinking of some of those moments, and you see them through a different lens, which we won't spoil for anybody watching this, but it was just a really interesting reading experience as well, because going through it and trying to understand what's happening and trying to get to know these characters, and then once you get to the end, thinking about some of the moments and the clues and the information that you put in there so deliberately, I thought it was really just smart and difficult. So
it was challenging. I had fun writing the flashback scenes, getting to grow up with them, and writing from such young voices. That was fun. And then I got to develop them and grow up with them. And so when they get to teenagers and are in high school, their true personas really come out. And if those feelings, that angst and that anger and that frustration or that hopefulness, it's all wrapped up once they become, you have to see who they become. And so when it really happens, really it all makes sense when the end collides with the past and the present. And it was challenging because I had to go back and do searches on details because things are written chronologically in the past. In the present, it may not relate directly with the preceding chapter. So it may be something I wrote at the end of chapter 4, but it really reflects on something in the present in chapter 18. So you just don't know it until you read it through. And that's why this is one of the stories I highly recommend reading twice, because then you'll realize all those things are on purpose, and everything is on purpose. So I liked leading the breadcrumbs and putting down the puzzle pieces. I really enjoyed that. And I know that I've read that people say, oh, I guessed it at this point, I guessed it at this point. And even my beta readers, like, I had a list of 5 things that I thought it was. And, one of them was what the conclusion ended up being. And to me, it really wasn't, I wasn't trying to fool anyone. I wasn't trying to trick anyone. I wasn't trying to play some head game. Yes, I'd like to prolong it as long as possible, but it was about the journey of getting there. So even if your conclusion is correct, it's how you feel when it's revealed. It's you being invested that much in the characters and their story that when it happens, you still have those same feelings as someone that had no idea up until that point. So really, it wasn't, don't be disappointed if you're like, oh, I got it. That's fine. Still love it. Still love the characters. And if you do, then that's what I've accomplished. That's my accomplishment. That's my goal.
Well, and we have a question from Karen Lawson. Hey, Karen. Related to that, she mentioned she loved the book, but is there something that you wish you would have done that you didn't, or maybe wished that you did something differently?
Considering everything I went through to create this, it's like a delicate, piece of art at this point. Like, like a Jenga piece, you don't want to take anything out and watch the whole thing fall apart. No. So I don't think I could really go back. And I was literally rewriting up until my copy edit version. So just for anyone that doesn't understand the different versions of editing, so I hand in a manuscript, which is basically your first draft, and then you have a content editing round where it's just fleshing out the story. And that, when I got it back, I knew still something was missing. I pretty much rewrote the entire manuscript in 10 days. So in that time, because I knew I just needed to change things around, I needed to switch things, and just to hit deadline. And to do that, I had to stay up 52 hours straight at one point. I was delusional and ridiculous, but I was just that dedicated to making this perfect. Then after that, that's the content. You get copy edits, and copy edits are about grammar, and it's about sentence structure and making sure everything's concise. And I was still changing sentences and switching things around as far as contents are concerned. You should be done that by that point. So I was really messing with it up until I absolutely couldn't anymore. So no, I don't want to touch it. I'm just gonna walk away and let it be. And I'm very proud of this. I'm very proud of what it is and the story that is. And I miss the characters. I know that I wrote something I'm very proud of is when I walk away from it and I miss the characters. So I go back and read my favorite books.
Well, and speaking of the characters, and you talked about voices a little while ago, and you talked about different point of views. But one of the interesting things is that it's told primarily in a male point of view through Cal Logan's head and his perspective. What was that experience like writing through a male POV? I think what was really interesting too is it was in a male POV mainly, but you still got so much emotion and vulnerability from his perspective, which I think at least I wouldn't have expected to see that. But you got all those, feels and emotions. Tell us about that experience.
Well, Cal was basically the narrator because he had to tell her story. So when I always describe this book, when I was in concept with it, it's her story, but told by him. And so he is the observer. He's the camera kind of following her around. Whatever's happening, you as the reader find out through his perspective. And that's what puts all those puzzle pieces together, is him, is his eyes that you're viewing it through. So the emotion, because I really wanted him to make him an average guy. I really didn't want to make him spectacular in the sense that he's an over-top personality. He's not Evan. He's not overly romantic and sensitive and driven in that way. He's not a bad boy. He's not one of those guys that he's just. I just wanted to be just the guy next door. Something you might know that you know sometime in your life. I really wanted to capture that, and so finding his voice was really challenging because I didn't want to make him boring, and he was at first. He was boring. I just didn't want to write him. It was just driving me crazy. But no, then when I found his true personality, it gave him, made him sarcastic and made him funny in that sense. He did. He makes me laugh, and I got a crush on him, so I like him. But no, it's just, the whole point was that he had to be neutral enough that his personality didn't overpower the story. And that's Niall. Her personality is over the top, so he had to be calm enough to be able to, and he had to make sense enough to be able to put up with her crazy. So he just had to be an easygoing, laid-back guy. So I've captured his voice, and that was the important part of it. And the emotion side of it is, it's not necessarily him that's feeling, it's her. And he's such a keen observer. He takes everything in about her. So her when she cries or she laughs or you get to feel it because he does, and he has such an admiration for her. He's in love with her. So for him to show that, you're basically seeing a guy falling in love, and because he's overly aware of everything that she's doing and she's feeling and what she says, and so that's where the emotion comes in, or that's what my goal is anyway.
Well, let's talk about emotions, actually. In the Breathing series, we get a lot of emotion, right? So there's, for sure, a lot of intensity, but tons of emotion. I mean, lots of feels. You really have, you do a really good job of withdrawing every ounce of emotion from your readers. And I think even though these two the series and this book, they're very different in a lot of ways. One of the things that's common is the amount of emotion you feel as a reader experiencing the book. You talked about always having, a message, but do you also kind of write intending, to withdraw so much emotion from the reader? Is that something you go for? Is that a goal of yours? Or talk to us about kind of that emotional stuff that you get from your books.
Well, I feel that if you're not feeling it, that you're not experiencing it correctly. You're not, at least in my stories, they're not action driven for the most part. They're not, it's not a murder mystery or anything like that. It's not suspenseful in that regard. It's not horror fiction or anything like that. It's driven by human relationships. So in order for you to be invested, in order for you to care, I need you to feel. And so, and the truth was, this was missing that at the beginning too. And I talked to author after author trying to figure out what that key ingredient was that was making this off. What was it about it that kept it amiss? And what it was, I was so wrapped up in creating this mystery and plotting those twists and turns, and I had originally left out the emotion. So when it was, brought to my attention, go back and add emotion, I was like, oh, that's it. I mean, that's what I do. So when I went back and I plotted that in and threw all those angst and those tears and that laughter, that's when it hit me, and I know I got it. But I want you to always feel when you read my stories, and it may be uncomfortable at times. It's about to get very uncomfortable going into the next series, but that's the whole point. When I write, my question to myself is, are people going to like this? My question is, how are people going to feel? And that's purposeful. That's something I do as a creator, as an artist. I want to evoke emotion. And so it's not about appealing to a mass audience. It's not about getting 1,000 reviews. It's about those that walk away from it, whether they love it, whether they hate it. There's emotion, and that's all I care about.
You've done some pretty cool things in terms of getting the word out on this book. I loved the microsite, and hopefully everyone has seen it. whatifrebeccadonovan.com, whatif.rebeccadonovan.com. But in addition of this being such a kind of awesome way to bring interactivity to the release of the book, how has it been to listen to some of the what if comments? I mean, I've been on the website multiple times and just listening and reading. I mean, how was that for you? I mean, even for me as just, a reader and someone that went on the website, it was pretty impactful.
Well, I'd love for anyone to view it, whether they're interested in reading the book or not. It's just a great movement. That's what we're calling it, the What If movement. And it's just a way for people to be reflective on their life and of their situation, and to take charge of themselves and the choices they make. I just want everyone to realize that every choice is yours. Whether, no matter where you come from, what situation you're in, no matter how hard it is, they're still your choices. And regardless of what others may influence in your life, the path you go down is your own. And that's why I love reading these. It's just looking at, these decisions people make. And at the time, it might felt like a very stressful, very hard decision. But then I'm forcing them to reflect on a positive experience that came from it. So that's, it's not about regret. It's about recognizing that this is going to lead somewhere good. It may not happen right now. It might be hard right now. But in a year or 10 days or 10 years, you're going to be in a place you're going to look back and say, if I hadn't have done this, then this wouldn't have happened. It's just being appreciative, just being grateful. And I just love the humanity of it. Being able to watch people and share, and a lot of it has to do with just human relationships, of having people in their lives, and that's just lets you see just how important we all are to each other.
Well, we have a question from Gloria Landavaso. Hey, Gloria, and she, we're talking about what if moments. Can you share one of your what if moments?
Well, you have so many. So I have some in my video, but there was a choice I had to make coming out of college. I had always wanted to go to California, and I had this goal of moving to San Francisco, and things just didn't work out. And that was just a huge branch of my life where if I had definitely gone to San Francisco, who knows who I would have become. But I didn't. I stayed in Massachusetts, and look, I mean, there's so many then statements that follow after that. So I'm, grateful for that decision. But it's one of those things that you always look back on is, what if I had moved to San Francisco? Yeah, that's one of them anyway.
Well, and it's been amazing, as I said before, to kind of listen to everybody's what if experiences. So let's switch gears a little bit. You have had some pretty exciting news that you've shared with us around the breathing series. So specifically, movies. Give us a scoop. I know you've talked about it a little bit, but I'm not sure if everybody kind of understands what is happening and that it's being done. Give us a scoop.
Okay, so what I can tell you, because it is a slow process, which is something I'm not used to at all, is I was approached by an independent production company in London, Amber Entertainment, and they wanted to launch this experience with my books, to do a film series directly based on the novels. So without the interpretation that a large production company or movie company would do, like Warner Brothers or New Line Cinema or whoever, where they take the books and they make it whatever they want. What people don't realize, there's two things you don't realize. We have no say if our books become movies. We have to get approached. We have to be offered. So when I get the emails going, you should really look at getting your books made into movies, I would love that. That's not my choice. Yes. So the other is when you do, depending on the contract that you're given, you're basically signing over the rights to the film, to the book, and they'll adapt it. They have their own screenwriter, and they come up their own screenplay. And what we have this 400-something page book. It has to go make it into a 90-minute movie. And when you're writing a screenplay, it's a minute a page. So you have to make 90 pages. That's it. That's all you have. So you're going from 425 to 90, and with dialogue and set direction and all of that. And so that's why things are adapted in a different way. That's why it's a different experience, and because it's coming from a different writer. Really, they're not going to take things down verbatim. They're going to interpret it in their own way, and they're going to come up with their own vision. So what Amber is doing is, I'm the screenwriter, and instead of there being an adaptation, instead of adapting the books to film, we're adapting the film to the books. So there's going to be 3, ideally 75 to 90-minute movies, and they are going to be straight to download, separated out. But that's what everything's doing nowadays anyway. If you look at like House of Cards, or if you're looking at everything else that everyone's doing, not many people in the theater anymore. Which is completely fine, because I'd rather watch it in my own living room anyway, or have a bunch of friends over and watch it. And so I have complete creative control over the script, and I work with a team, and so I'll be involved in everything from choosing the director to the setting that we're filming in, to the casting, which I'm kind of excited about. But so I am a producer as well. So it's that partnership, and it's that direct correlation from them to me to film that's going to make it, I hope, an amazing experience unlike any other. And the best part that we're going to do, as soon as things do get rolling, which we're so close, and they're going to have the fans be involved. So whether it's to be on set and to be an extra, or to vote on casting if we're down to like a minor character, if we're down to a couple of actors, or just to give you behind the scenes in a much more intimate way, where I get to interview actors and I get to tell you what's going on day to day. So you're gonna see my face a lot, like it or not. But it's gonna be just a fun experience where you get to really understand the movie making process beyond just what comes out at the end result. And I think that would be so much fun.
Well, it sounds like fun. I imagine it's a little bit nerve-wracking as well, like you said. But, speaking of the Breathing series, we have a question from Jen Benando. Hey, Jen. Speaking of the books itself, what made you choose that subject matter for the Breathing series, which, as we talked about, is very intense, very heartfelt, very emotional?
Well, I have a degree in psychology out of college, and I wanted to make an impact with young adults, with teenagers. I was barely out of my teens myself, so it was a very emotional emotional experience for me. I did about 3.5 years out of college, and I worked with teens, and so I got to witness firsthand their hardships and what they went through in their family life and the results of it, and just even from personalities to demeanor to what happens to them at school. And so when I had originally come up with a concept, a night of insomnia when I was trying to sleep and I couldn't, started thinking about this story, I knew that she had to have some sort of secret, but it's a secret that people want, especially in an affluent town, and that's why I chose that setting. They weren't going to want to know about it, and it was going to be something she needs to hide and something that she needs to be able to conceal. But when it came out, it was going to be devastating for everyone. And so that, with my background, you knew that she had to be being abused, and so that's the road I went down with that. And also, not only just to shed light on the matter itself, but that's that's the reason I went that way instead of choosing her to have some other situation.
So, speaking of intensity, so I think you know where I'm going. And actually, we have a question from Paula Cook about what I'm going to ask you about his series, the Burning series, which is a little bit intense from what I hear. Have you started writing it? I think Igniting Lives, is that right, is book one. And we've, met him before, obviously played a very crucial character in the Breathing series. And I can only imagine this is probably going to be, intense is a word, as I said, probably in more ways than one. What can you tell us? Have you started writing it?
No, I've been so wrapped up in finishing the What If and getting the marketing stuff done, but I'm about to get into it. He's been living in my head for months, and that's how I start any project. Is the voice has to be there, has to be developed. So before I can touch a computer, I have to really have a strong sense of the story. And since he's a trilogy, I do want to write back to back. So be patient. This is not coming anytime soon, so I'm about to write 3 books. Okay, and my books aren't short, so I need the time. But if I get that flow and I get that, because his story needs to be continuous, you have to be able to capture it. It's gonna be really dark and really violent, and I'm still having issue of who I need him to be in the end for you. I don't want to redeem him per se. I don't want to. A lot of times I find that when you're reading from a different perspective, you become empathetic of that character because you're in their head and you're like, oh, I understand now. Oh, I get it. Oh, that poor guy. I don't want that really necessarily. I want to be true to Jonathan, and he's one of my most complicated and controversial characters that I've created. He has a whole team of love and a whole team of hate, and I don't really want to blend those two people together. I may switch sides, but I want to really be true to him, and he's made some horrible decisions, and we won't go into that because anyone hasn't read Barely Breathing yet. But I don't want to make excuses for him. So it's going to be really interesting to see how I can write through his perspective, but still make it so that you can draw your own conclusion of how whether you like his character or not. So that's the part that I'm kind of going through and fleshing out right now, is how to be neutral. But at the same time, it's gonna be first person. So
he sounds like he's gonna be, a really difficult character, multifaceted character, and complex character to write. I mean, it sounds like you're gonna go to some pretty different places than you've been with some of your other books.
Yeah, no, he's angry. So the darkness I'm going to with him, it's not the emotional insecurity or vulnerability that we have with Emma, or the doubt and questioning that we had with What If. It's going to be really angry. It's not going to be YA. It's not going to be. It's not. So just tapping into that anger, into that's something that I'm not naturally a negative person or an angry person. So in order to emote that, I have to find it somehow, and that's going to be the most challenging part for me. And it's when I write, when we talked about emotion before, if I can't feel it, then I know you're not going to feel it. So I need for you to, I need to go there. I need to go to the depths of standing at the edge of the ocean, and I need to feel every blow. Like I have to really encompass that. And in its own sense, it's so in a sense of acting. But with him, that's gonna be the challenging part, is to find that anger, to tap into that.
Well, and he might be the kind of character too where you can't plan too much for him. He might be taking you in directions you didn't expect because he's so different and complex. So he might surprise you in the end, and who knows what will happen. So.
I know, and I'm one of those where I have to know my end point. My journey is always very organic, but the end point, and I don't know his end point, so that's making me very nervous. I don't know what's going to happen to him, so I'm a little nervous. So we'll see what happens. I have a plan. I'm gonna write this completely different from everything else I've ever written. So let me see what happens and how it all works out. So maybe you'll see me in a few months, and if I look you understand what's going on.
We'll make sure to have someone come knock at your house and make sure you're okay. Well, we are so excited about the series. So many people have loved the What If book, the What If movement, the experience of reading it and talking about what if moments. So thank you for sharing all of this with us and spending some time answering these questions. So really appreciate it. And we will have this video interview also on our pages after this so people can catch up in different time zones. But again, thank you so much, Rebecca, for spending time with me and with everybody else as well.
Thank you. It was fun.
And if we answered your question, go ahead and send a message. It seems we have one more question coming in, sliding in from Andy Maple. Hey, Andy. So we are not over yet. So she's talking about switching from, you switch seamlessly between male and female POVs. We talked a little bit about the male POV earlier, but do you have a preference in terms of writing one versus the other?
That's really interesting. Even though Cal is a struggle for me to find his voice, Evan was not. Maybe because I spent more time when I was writing, before I wrote his point of view, and he's really not the typical male in the sense that he's really a very sensitive character. So, I don't have a preference. I think that I just have to know them. I have to be inside their head. So, because I'm actually not afraid to have, for Jonathan's voice. I know it. I think also maybe it was because I have had this experience. I do have history with him, where Cal, I was creating him, and I was so strung up on making him sound like a guy. So it's my own internal pressures. So, but no, I don't have a preference exactly. I think that it could be interesting either way. And in truth, when I was writing Nicole's character, because when we do the past of the childhood, when she became that much more, when you got the angrier side of her, when she was kind of fed up with everything, I actually really, maybe it's just I like these really when they get complex and really emotional, but I really liked that, when I was in there and I was doing that and I got to be this angry teenage girl. So I don't know, I guess maybe I am a little disturbed. I don't know. But no, I'm really, as much as I'm afraid to have Jonathan's voice in my head, I'm also looking forward to it. I like the challenges. I like being able to explore the different sides of humanity. So it's going to be really, really interesting. But no, I don't have a preference on age or of male or female. As long as I can connect with them, as long as I can find the humanity or the human factor in them to make them three-dimensional, to make them feel like they could be someone that you could meet. Because to me they're real, and that's what I need to create for you to make you believe in them too.
And I see some questions continuing to pop up. So if you have any questions, ask now before we wrap up. But one other question is, Andy also mentions that your books seem to stand the test of time. So if someone picked it up 10 years from now, they would still seem fresh and relevant. Is that something that you think about while you're writing them?
I do, actually, especially going into the breathing series. I tried to stay away from specific. I didn't do any specific songs. I gave you a hint to what it sounded like, and it's so funny when they see my soundtrack, like, oh, that's the song I was thinking about. I'm like, good, great, because that's it. But I don't want to lead you in that direction. I don't do lyrics. I try to be careful about technology. I mean, I'll talk about Facebook. I talk about iPhone and things, because I feel like they'll be around forever. But it's even so, there's such a huge part of this generation of where we are that even if someone 20 years from now and they don't exist anymore, they're going to understand what they are and why they're reading about them. So yeah, I love that, and I think it's the greatest compliment when I have teenagers telling me, oh, you get high school. You know what? I wrote about my high school, and I didn't just go there like 5 years ago. So in the sense that because it really is the same tribulations, no matter what the social stigmas are, whether you're passing notes, or if you're whispering, or if you're calling people on a phone versus Skyping with them, or messaging them, or your phone. It's all the same it's the humanity of it, what it is, how high school is the same. So I think that I love that, and that same thing with college. And I touched on with what if. I didn't go into too much detail with it, but it taps on my college experience, whether parties and hanging out with people and things like that. But yeah, no, I try. My goal as an author is not to be forgotten. I feel like I want to write history. So when it goes on a shelf, I'm creating a piece of history, and that's really important to me.
Well, and we have a number of comments to say how much they love your work and everything that you do, and thanking you for that. We'll take this final question. And actually, there's two questions that are kind of similar from Gloria and from Jen, but around the emotions that you have when you're writing your book. So how are you able to keep yourself separate from those emotions? How do you cope with all that? Because, we've talked about the intensity of the breathing series, introspection and thoughtfulness of the What If series, and you're about to go dark and intense again. How do you kind of remove yourself? Because like you said, you're a happy, positive person. So how do you work that out?
I can't remove myself from it. I have to immerse myself in it. I have to get down and dirty with them. I have to, I cry my hardest cries when I'm writing. I get into these really funks so it's almost like I'm completely in this world. And you ask any of my friends, when I'm in my writing zone, I'm not here. I do not exist in this this world. I function, but I'm always there, and I'm living in this alternate plane, I guess. But yeah, it's really hard. I think that's why sometimes the hardest. When I wrote, anyone that read Out of Breath, the letter that Rachel had to wrote to Emma, I hysterically cried after that. And it's just a letter, and I get that, but to me, I had to be Rachel. I had to be that angry, that bitter, and that vindictive to write something that cruel. And so I was hysterically crying after I wrote that, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I wanted to call a friend and say, "I'm crying. Help me." I don't know. And I just looked at me like, "Why are you crying?" Well, then I was like, okay, this is not going to go over well. I can't call anyone. So
me goosebumps again thinking about it.
So I have to take a moment. I have to process it. And then sometimes I have to walk away. And I think maybe that's why writers we eat chocolate, because it makes us happy. Happy food. Because when we get into those dark places, we do have to remove ourselves sometimes. And just get back into the human race a little bit, just to and especially like the scene with Emma by the ocean. That was a hard scene for me to write. I missed that mark several times before I got it right. And then I went out to California, and I was literally sat in front of the ocean, and I was there, and I had to. And it was when you get there, when you get to that place of despair, brokenness, and you have to find it within yourself. And I think we all have it, whether we're able to tap into it or not. It's just about being human. So, but yes, I'm usually very optimistic and very happy. But I think I'm overly empathetic in the sense that I can relate and I can understand, and so I can pick up on those emotions, those feelings. And I think that's it's a gift I'm very grateful to have.
Well, we look forward to feeling so much, like I said, in what's coming. And as you can see, there's just so many comments from readers, talking about how much your books mean to them and how much they love your books. So thank you.
Well, I wouldn't be here without them. I mean, it really is all about the readers. I mean, I'm an author because I'm read, and that's how I've always thought of myself. So I'm very appreciative. So thank you.
Thank you to everyone for all your questions. I know that we didn't get to all of them, and we are a little bit over tonight, but thank you for spending the time with us. And if you have any additional questions, you can put them on our Facebook pages, and we can go from there. But thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.